Now to Ethiopia, the devastating war between federal troops and Tigrayan fighters in the northernmost region of the country. Aid agencies now say millions of people living there in the north are living in famine conditions. The fighting has largely stopped. A peace process is meant to be in place, but tensions still remain. And despite this, the Ethiopian government announced this week that the UN will now help rebuild the Tigray region. The UN's Office for Project Services, UNOPS, is to help rebuild infrastructure and restore essential services like water, health, education, sanitation, in an area that's still mostly controlled by the regional authorities. This project is being financed by the World Bank. In April, it became the first major financial institution to unblock funds to Ethiopia after a ceasefire was declared in the 20-months-long war. But what do the Tigrayans make of this project announced from Addis Ababa? Getachew Reda is an advisor to the president of Tigray and a senior member of the TPLF ruling party.
It came as a complete surprise.
The announcement said, and I'm sure you've seen it, that the agency called the UNOPS will implement what seem to be some critical projects in consultation with the community. Will your community cooperate with the UN on these projects?
Look, the very difficulty begins with the very assessment of the World Bank when it decided to disperse the funds. We are talking about a regime that has systematically destroyed an entire region and its population. And the very idea of engaging the authorities in Addis Ababa on the reconstruction of Tigray, when in actual fact the war is still raging, that by itself is mind-boggling. Having said that, whatever arrangement they are going to make should be done in consultation with the government of Tigray, which has a very proven track record of delivering when it comes to reconstruction projects. But we have barely scratched the surface in terms of laying the responsibility for the destruction of the country, especially Tigray, under the feet of the very government which is now claiming to work towards the reconstruction of Tigray. And yet you have the World Bank helping the government change the narrative.
As you know, the United Nations works through nations, so that is why it may say it had to go through the federal government. We're going to speak to someone from UNOPS. What should we say to them?
It requires some level of engagement, both by the World Bank and by UNOPS. Otherwise, federal authorities do not have control over most of Tigray. I know they still continue to control Western Tigray, but how are they going to figure out what is going to be the best interest of our people?
You say the war is raging. If war is raging, that means there won't be any reconstruction work. But we understand there's a ceasefire. Where is the war?
This basically is a humanitarian ceasefire where only one corridor has been opened. Even with the opening of the corridor, with the announcement of cessation of hostilities, there still is the continuation of the war in a different means. We still have a long way to go before whatever food is available in the warehouses could be distributed to the beneficiaries, because the authorities in Addis Ababa are standing in the way of access to fuel and access to services, basic services, telecom, electricity, banking has been cut off by the authorities in Addis Ababa to impose a de facto blockade on Tigray.
Getachew Reda of the TPLF. Well, for UN View, we turn to Worknesh Mekonnen-Gone. She's the UNOPS country director for Ethiopia. How will this project be implemented?
There is a mechanism put in place for the UN system to work already, and we've been collecting information based on that, especially to verify the infrastructure damage assessment report that has been done over a year ago. But as you already know, we're just starting, so we're working on it accordingly. And we hope the more these basic services are going to be restored, it will be complementing to the effort of peace-building processes, hopefully.
That's the UN View. Well, what about the government? Dr. Ayub Tekalin is Ethiopia's finance minister.
The project is designed to restore critical services that were damaged during the conflict that was triggered by TPLF. The government has done an assessment of the impact across the country, and then we work with partners. And this project is a World Bank funded project that will be implemented across Ethiopia, and Tigray is one part of it. So we have designed this to reach our people that are in critical need of these services.
But Tigray may be considered as a special case, and the authorities in Tigray, we spoke to an advisor to the president there, are furious that they weren't consulted about this project, which has to do with their territory?
This is a project that's implemented in all regions in Ethiopia, including Tigray. So the sovereign government, the federal government of Ethiopia, has designed and is implementing this project. But like any other humanitarian assistance that is going into Tigray, as you know, Tigray, currently our people are suffering from the brutal leadership of TPLF. But in some areas where there is a problem, third parties are, for instance, operating humanitarian assistance. And this is akin to that. What we wanted to do is to implement rebuilding of schools and some health facilities. And there's another component of this for gender-based violence for people affected during the conflict, and this will be implemented by UNICEF. This is not a project for TPLF, it's for our people in Tigray, and that's how it's designed.
I mean, you refer to them as the brutal leadership of the TPLF. They describe you in similar terms. If it is about the areas where they are in effective control, should they not have been consulted prior to this, and especially since there is supposed to be a peace process underway?
Well, these two things are completely unrelated. So we are forcefully working, trying to win peace.